Hey, welcome everyone to Caspio Live. This is Ned from Caspio. You guys know the drill. As always, before I begin the live session, let me know that you can hear me okay in the YouTube chat window, and we can go ahead and commence with today's topics. Hey, Ben, you can hear me? Very good. Hey, Brian, good to see you again. Good. Hopefully, you guys all had a good weekend. Hope you're having a good Monday. Today's session, I don't think it's going to take more than 30 minutes, but we'll see if we, deviate from today's topic to do something else. We do have some bonus content at the end of today's live stream for Zapier integration. This is based on the question that I had in the last live stream, which I don't know if it's going to answer the question, but I thought it would be very helpful to show you how you can submit a value in, let's say, US dollars into the form, and then using Zapier, we can bring that value back in a different exchange currency, or different currency, I mean. So you'll see how automatically, when you submit the form, we get the value back from Zapier from a website called, I think it's called Malib. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's going to convert that to a different currency, and it's going to write it back to another table in Caspio as the output. Okay, so input into one table, output into a different currency. So if you're doing financial type applications, you might find that helpful. And again, I don't know if it's going to answer the question, but we'll see. Hey, Tracy, good. Welcome back. Hey, King Capo. Good to see a lot of the regulars. All right, so for today's topic, we have 3 ways on how we can extend the Caspio calendar. And I don't typically like to point out the shortcoming in Caspio, but many of you, if you've used Caspio in the past, you know that we don't have the ability to separate the date from time as 2 different data types. We have a data type called date and time, but it's a combination of date and time together. But sometimes when you're, booking appointments, you really need the ability to separate the time from the date, which is very helpful when it comes to looking at all of your appointments on a calendar. So that's the first thing we're going to look at, is how do we go about creating an input time, and then we have a separate date. Now, this field is supposed to be hidden, but I'm leaving it exposed so that you can see what the JavaScript is doing. It's a function called onMouseOver. That's the function in JS. Then when you input the date and time, let's say today's date, you input the time, let's say, 5 p.m. And when you hover over the submit button, it adds those values or those variables into that field. Now, again, as I said, usually we hide that field, but I just want you guys to see how we take all of those values, combine them together into a field, and then upon submission, let me just make sure I select the name and interview type, let's say in person. And then upon submission, we go back to our calendar, and here we're going to be able to see that in a different color. So that's the second thing we're going to look at today, is based on the appointment type, and I have in person, I have video, and I have phone, and based on my selection in the form, we have a different background color on our calendar layout. Now you can expand that. You can have more than 3 appointment types, or you can have 10 or 20, and you can have many different colors on your calendar plotted. So that's the first thing we're going to look at, or second thing we're going to look at. The first thing we're going to look at is how to separate the date from time. And if you guys haven't seen this in our knowledge base, I'm borrowing this tutorial that we have on our how-to, where we have the time field with 4 different fields, which is the hour, the minutes, and the seconds. Now I removed the seconds because we don't really need to be that precise. And then we have the AM PM dropdown. And again, upon hover of the submit button, we concatenate those values together. And it's using a very simple JavaScript depending on the localization that you have. If you're in the UK and you use a 24-hour clock, you're going to have to use this JS. And then if you're in the US, we use a 12-hour clock. And all I've done was modify this JS slightly to exclude the second. So I have 4 different variables. In this example, we have 5 different variables. And I'll show you that in the data page in just a few minutes. But that's really essentially what the script is doing. It's taking these variables that we've defined. We use the function onMouseOver. And then using this script that we have here at the bottom, we are combining all of those variables together, those values into that field. Okay. The second how-to that we have, if you haven't noticed this one, also in the how-to, is color coding the data pages, based on the type. And again, this will take you probably less than a minute to implement, but you will see in my example, I have a lookup table that has different types. We have in-person, we have phone, and we have video. It's a lookup table. And depending on my script, I have to just change those values and apply the color that I want. And you don't really need to do anything else to the script. You copy and paste that into the footer, and then in your background, you'll have a different color. And the last example, the third one, it is possible in Caspio to make available time slots on a calendar layout. This is a little bit more involved. It does require a slightly higher technical acumen. We're not going to do a deep dive on this one. I will make it available in the description of the video if anybody wants to download and import into their account and study from it. You will be able to implement it, but there's a lengthy task. And what the task is doing is at the beginning of each month, it's inserting all of these time slots, based on availability for each of the locations. So we have Redwood City, San Jose, Santa Clara. If I select Redwood City, hit submit, it passes that parameter location ID to the calendar. And on the calendar here, we see the available time slots for that location. So if I book something, this time slot is no longer be available, will no longer be available. Okay, so those are the three different ways of how we can extend our calendars. Let's begin with the submission form so that you can see how I've done this. So here in my account, I have two different data pages. I have the ability to submit the appointment, and I have the calendar that displays all the interview appointments. In my tables, I have two different tables. Here's my lookup table. In my lookup table, as I've mentioned, I have in-person, video, and phone. These are my IDs for each one of them. I have connected my two tables. Just bear with me for a second while it loads. So there's my lookup table, and I'm connecting that back to my interview table for interview type. So let's take a look at the interview table. And in the interview table, my fields are basically interview type, which is an integer. To create that relationship between the lookup table and the interview table, I'm using auto number to integer. Okay. We have the interview date, which is the date and time. We have the applicant name and interview ID. So now let me show you my form. This is the important field. You have to have the interview date or any other date field that you might have, and you have to set the data type to date and time. Okay. Now on the data page, let's take a look. So I'm using that table, interviews. Here are my three fields, and what you'll notice is a lot of virtual fields. Okay, the virtual fields are not really used to submit anything into my table. They're really just used to collect those values. So you will see that the very first one is the interview date. I have the calendar pop-up. That's virtual one. Just remember, virtual one is the date field. Okay, so on the front end, in my demo, you will see that's my date field, but it's a virtual field. Virtual 2 is collecting the time, and it's collecting the time in hours. In the advanced tab, I'm using the default value 00, so you can see on the front end, in my demo, I have 00 as the default value. Now you could make these dropdowns. They don't have to be text fields. Usually, if in some examples, you'll see 1 through 12. Okay, so you can select that. And then in the other one, depending on the increment, you might have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, every 5 minutes, you can book an appointment. Okay, just depends on the use case. And finally, you have AM and PM. So here, we have the time for hours. We have the second virtual 3 for minutes. Okay, all right, so this is for the minutes. And the last one is here for AM, PM. And then we have that interview date field, which is going to receive all 4 of these values. And on mouse over, it's going to feed these values into my field. And that's what the script is doing. So I've separated it so you can see. So the function is on mouse over. We have our 4 different values that we're collecting. So the variable date, which is the virtual 1. Okay, second variable is hour, which is the virtual 2. Then we have minutes, and then we have the AM, PM. And at the bottom here, all we're doing is taking those values, combining them together, and inserting them into this field interview date. Okay. Let me take a look at my question. Do you have a start and stop date and time? No, we do not have that. It does involve a little bit of a JavaScript to do that as well. We are working on an RMA that's going to show you how to do that. So if you're looking for something like time clock in and clock out, you could have a button that triggers it to start the time, and then you hit the button again to stop that time, and it records the duration of that employee, all the hours that they have worked. So we have that capability. It's just not a standard feature. Again, in the future, we're going to have the time by itself, and that's going to solve a lot of problems. I don't want to call them problems, but it's going to improve the overall function of the applications once we have the ability to separate the date from time. But in the meantime, we have to use JS in order to circumvent that shortcoming. Okay, so that's the script. And that's how we're able to, on hover, feed all of that information into this field. Now, again, as I said, I would normally hide that field, but I'm exposing it to show you how that's being fed into the field here. And then on the calendar side, which we're going to look at as well, you can see that I'm displaying the time. So let's make one more appointment, let's say at 4:30 p.m. on the 9th. So let's come back here, and we'll just say Sarah Lee, maybe in person on the 9th. And we'll say 4:30 p.m. On hover over, you can see how that was corrected. Let's hit submit. Let's come back to my calendar. And now you will see Sarah Lee at 4:30 p.m. And I'm displaying the time only, not the date. So if I look at my calendar now, interview date. I've customized my formatting, so I click on edit, I do custom, and I want the format type to just be time. I don't want the date. The date is obvious because it's on the calendar, right? But I only want to display the time, and that I've chosen the short time. I don't need the long time that includes the seconds and the PM and anything else. And then the format will just carry over from the submission. Okay, hi Randy, thanks for sharing. I don't see what Randy shared, but if he did, thank you, Randy. All right, so that's the first example. So if you are thinking about using calendars and you want the time, it is possible. I promise you this JS that you see on this how-to, which I'll share with you guys in the chat, is actually very easy to dissect and understand. I imagine that you're not going to need the second also, because second is an overkill. I think we don't really need to be that precise, right? With the seconds when the appointment's going to be. So what you do is you simply remove that. So you're going to remove this additional variable, all right? And then you're also going to remove that from the JavaScript here as well. You don't need to collect that, all right? So then it just becomes the two fields, the hours and the minutes with the AM, PM, and that's really all you do. But again, it also hinges on the localization that you're using in your application, depending on the region. Now, the second one we're going to look at is how to do the background color change. And this one is super simple, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So let's go into my application. Once again, I'm in my calendar. We're going to go into the footer section, and all I did was copy and paste. I promise that's all I did. I didn't manipulate the JS in any way, okay? So here you're going to be able to see the script. I have my types. I have in-person, video, and phone for my lookup table. And I picked these colors. These are the hex colors for the background. The only change that you need to be aware of is, where is it? Just trying to find it. This one here. End of type. And in parentheses, in the knowledge base, you will see that it's set to 1. Okay? You have to change that number depending on where in the list that type field is located. So you can see that in my list, we have 1, 2, and 3. So the type field, which is in-person, phone, and video, is listed number 3 in the list. So in my JavaScript, I have to change that from 1 to 3, and that's exactly what I did. And that is really the only change that you need to make. Okay, and this is how on your calendar, you're going to have a different background color. And that's really the extent of it. It's as simple as that, really. One thing I want to mention, which I forgot to mention at the very beginning of today's class, I usually like to preface and say that, you know, Caspio, first and foremost, it's a no-code platform, okay? You can do a lot with no-code, okay? But we also don't want to limit creativity, so we allow people to inject these industry standard languages such as SQL, JS, HTML, CSS into the platform for even more dynamic solutions. Okay, so if there's a shortcoming, you can usually get around it by injecting these languages. And believe me when I say this, every platform out there has, you know, some shortcomings. But at least with Caspio, even if there is one, if you just Google these scripts, you're going to be able to find a lot of them. And it's really, a lot of times, it's just as easy as copy and paste, manipulate the script a little bit to make it work for the Caspio application. Okay. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the final one, which is how to display these time slots in a calendar. Again, I'm not going to do a deep dive on this one because it's a bit more involved, but I will make this application, this entire application, available as a download in the description of the YouTube video later on. So if you want to import that into your account, you can study from it and see how it was done. Okay. But the reason why I chose not to show you how to do that is because it does involve script and a long task, which we just don't have the time to put together. So let me go into a different application here, which is scheduling app. So that will be the name of the app, scheduling app. Okay, but you will see when I go to task and we look at, I believe it's this one here. Yeah, you can see it's somewhat of a lengthy task. All right, and all it's doing at the beginning of each month, it's feeding the calendar those time slots that are available based on availability for each region. Okay, that's really what it's doing, the location. Okay, and then you will see on the data page side when we look at the calendar, I believe it's this one. Let me take a look. Weekly calendar. I have a script running here in the HTML block. And what it's doing, well, first of all, it's the button, but what it's doing here, it's creating that button, okay, based on the location. Okay, that's what it's doing. It's creating that button, essentially. Okay, and then when you click on the button, you're passing that field or that value to the form so that you can feed the location, the time, and the date to the submission form. So here on the front end, when you click on this button, which is what the script is doing, you're passing information in the URL and you're feeding that information here on the submission form. Okay, so I'll make that available in the download. Well, now would be a good time for questions. If you have any questions on the calendar side, before I go into the bonus content, which uses Zapier to bring information back to Caspio, I'll answer any question you might have on the calendar side. Again, I hate to point out the shortcomings on the calendar side because of the data type, but the reality is, you know, every platform has its shortcomings. This is the one that Caspio has on the calendar side to separate the date and time. But if you notice how easy it is on the submission form, you could separate it and then you can use it if on the submission form you're booking that appointment with the time and the date. Is it possible to add an hour to make the end time as a separate column in the table? Is that JavaScript? That sounds to me like it would be a trigger, or maybe a combination of both. To make the end time as a separate column in the table. Are you saying you want to be able to have the time as opposed to have it be combined with the date in the table? Is that what you're asking? Because right now in that date and time combination, we combine those values together into a date and time, but you want the time to be by itself? I don't suppose that we can't, because if, no, that's not what you're asking. Okay, my apologies. Is it possible to add an hour to make the end time? I mean, if I can't answer your question, Ben, just shoot me an email offline. I'll take a look at it, okay? And then I'll provide you with more detail. Usually I like to do that so that we don't spend too much time in the live stream. And if it's something that I find valuable, which in this case it might be, I can bring that to the following live stream next Monday as the bonus content, which is what I'm doing today, just to explain how we can do that. How do you assure that the new appointment does not overlap an existing appointment? That's a good question. Let me think. In that case, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make the date and time field a unique field so that you cannot book the same date and time twice in the calendar. And what I'm talking about, which I haven't really tested myself, let's go back to the other app. We might be able to try it. So let's do custom calendar in the table, interviews. We might be able to make this one a unique field. So if somebody tries to book the same date and time, it'll get rejected because it's unique. So if we try that, let's hit save. So you would have to do that ahead of time. So let's see. We can try it. Let's see. Today is August 1st. Yeah. 5 p.m. Yeah, let's try that. So let's do new appointment, August 1st. 5 p.m. And then we'll just select these two values as well. Just for fun, let's see what happens. Yeah, so value already present. You can also change this in the localization, the text. This is the default text from Caspio, but you could change that to something else if you want that to read. This time slot for this date is already booked or something like that. Or if you are wondering if, let's say, the appointment duration is like 30 minutes from 5 to 5:30 and somebody tries to book it at 5:15, Jared, is that also what you were thinking? Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud here what might come up in these types of workflows. Yeah, that too. Okay. I did not think about that, actually. So let me brainstorm a little bit offline and see how we might be able to go about doing something like that. Let me think about it a little bit more, okay? If you can do me a favor, if you see my email up above, just send me an email with the same exact question, Jared. And let me sit on that for a day or two just so I can figure it out, okay? And I'll get back to you. And I might be able to bring that back in next week's Monday session. All right, let's move on to the final bonus content, which is the Zapier integration. I thought it was really cool. Let me go ahead and go into my different application that I have. What did I call that? Currency demo. Yeah. And what I already have the Zap running in the background. Okay, so you enter in a value in one table. Let me see if this was where you enter the value. Which one is the output? I think this one is the output. Received value. Yeah. I try to do multiple currencies, but I have a free account with Zapier, so I wasn't able to do another action. If I had a paying account, I would be able to submit a value in US dollars and then bring that value back in euro and in this case pesos, which I wasn't able to do because I have a free account with Zapier. But the idea was when you enter in a value in one Caspio table, let's say something drastic like 5 or 9 million. That is 9 million. You enter that value in the other table, and I don't know how long this is going to take. So we'll just hit refresh here a few times. Don't know how long it's going to take Zapier to bring that. Sometimes, there it is. Okay, so now you can see that value in euro came back from Zapier. And the website that I was using is called Malib. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Okay, this is the website. And what's really cool, which I haven't really dabbled with yet, is they also, through Zapier, have the ability to send a list of all the exchange rates daily. So if, let's say, I'm thinking in your lookup table, if you have a list of all the exchange rates, and if you have a formula on the Caspio table, you could theoretically, if you submit a value in US dollars, you might be able to change that value across all of the currencies. I don't know. I haven't gone that far yet. But let's go to my Zapier account. so I can show you. Let's go to Zaps. Okay, so this is the one. We're going to click on Edit. Edit Zap. Edit Draft. So the trigger is the Caspio, right? I have my Caspio table. When a new record is created, okay, the action is to convert to currency, but you will see here we have the get daily rates. I haven't played around with this one yet, get daily rates. I don't know what it does. I'm thinking that it might just send the daily rates to my Caspio table. And again, as I said, if I have a formula data type, I might be able to do some fancy calculations with that. But it's converting to currency. Let's see, choose the account. That's my Malleable account or Malib account. And the base currency is the US dollar to currency. And then you can see all the different currencies that are available. I chose Euro. Okay. This is my Caspio field. So that's the value where the initial value is submitted. Okay. And I'm not doing anything with the dates either. I think this is checking for based on the date for the exchange date. But again, very simple. Okay. Then I hit continue and then I try to do another action. So this is me trying to do another action to convert into pesos, but I wasn't able to do that because I don't have a paying account with Zapier. But the final action here is to send or create a new record in my Caspio table. So that's my account, setup action. So that's my table that's receiving that value, receive the value from Malib in that currency. And, oh, wait, this is to... Yeah, so this is the second one that I was trying to receive, but it didn't let me. This one is receiving correctly. That's the Euro. But this is the one I wasn't able to receive in pesos because, again, I don't have a paying account with Zapier. You can also do the same thing with Integromat, which is another way of creating these workflows. I've done these Zapier sessions a few times now on our Caspio Live. So if you want to see some other implementations and integrations with Zapier, just search for Caspio Zapier, and you'll see previous Caspio Live sessions on how we connect to Facebook Messenger, how we connect to Slack. We've done some stuff with Acuity, which is a scheduling app, and I can't recall what else we've done. Let me see, Oliver. Can the currency chosen in Malib be drawn from a Caspio field? And that's what it's doing. It's taking it from the Caspio field, which is the initial value. So it's taking it from that field and converting it in Malib and sending it back to Caspio in an output table. And I just read your email this morning, so I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I briefly read it, but I'll reply back later today if I have comments on it, Oliver, okay? Have I done Outlook Calendar to Outlook Contact? No, I have not, but it's a good idea. We might be able to bring that into the live stream, Ben. Again, you have my email, Ben, so if you think of a workflow that might work with Outlook Calendar and Outlook Contact, let me know. If Zapier has Outlook available as one of their zaps, we should be able to do something with that. So let me just go back and see if I can find it. Also, we have done a lot of these live streams already. I think we have over 40 live streams since the inception of Caspio Live. So hopefully you guys are finding these live streams helpful. If we look for Outlook, sorry, those are the list of my zaps. Sorry, give me a second. Little slow today with Zapier. Let's just create a new zap and see if we can do something with that. So let me look for Outlook. Yeah, Microsoft Outlook is in here. What event do we have? Calendars, events start, new calendar event, new contact, new email, update calendar events. So it looks like they have quite a few actions available or events. So based on the workflow that you're thinking, Ben, let me know. Send me an email and then we might be able to, see if we can put that together for the next live stream. So these are great. I always like feedback. I like suggestions because it gives me ideas for what to do in the live streams. And I think a lot of people can benefit from this bonus content as well. Okay. Let's see our time. It is 10:30 as promised. It wasn't supposed to take more than 30 minutes. Hopefully you enjoyed today's content. I love doing the live stream for you guys, so hopefully you guys are enjoying the content along with me presenting the content. And yeah, I'll let you guys know of some upcoming news on the next live stream. What's going to happen with the Caspio Live. I'm not going to say that now, but I'll let you know on the next live stream. Okay? But I absolutely enjoy doing these sessions, so I appreciate you guys coming back. Hopefully you're able to make a lot of the content that we do in the live stream and implement that in your own applications. And if you're not, then just send me an email and we'll find a way to make it work. Okay? Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Ben, Oliver, Tracy, King Capo, a lot of the regulars that keep coming back to my live stream. Without you coming back, we wouldn't have these live streams. So thank you so much. And if you remember to just like the video, it really does help us out a lot to get more exposure and get more people to attend the live stream. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow this community so we can have more people enjoying the content. Thanks, Dexter, Phil. Thanks, guys. And yeah, what I'll do is I'll close the live stream. I'll keep the chat running a few more minutes as always if you have any last minute questions. And then we're going to end the live stream in about a minute or two. So let me know if you have any last minute questions. If not, have a good Monday. Have a good rest of the week. And we'll see you on Monday next week. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.